All right, and we are live. I see Patrick's got first blood this morning. Hey, what do you guys think of that thumbnail? That was Mario's idea to represent Syria as a Sorlak pit, but I added the money suck and the stealth bomber to kind of drive that idea home. So we're going to talk this morning a little bit about the situation in Syria, the very serious risk that the recent death of Assad in
Bashar al-Assad.
The disappearance. Well, really, the disappearance of Bashar al-Assad. If I understand it correctly, there's some skepticism as to whether or not he's actually dead.
That was a few days ago. He's fine now. He and his family made it to Moscow, and Putin offered them sanctuary and asylum. So he and his family are safe in Moscow.
That's what I was going to say. I wasn't tracking that. I knew that there was some speculation on whether or not he had made it safely to Moscow, but he's out. So now Syria is a massive power vacuum, and that excuse me, that doesn't tend to work out well when there's a massive power vacuum. So in a lot of ways, we can compare this to the fall of Saddam Hussein. I remember Hussein going down, and then all of a sudden you've got this massive power vacuum, and something that the West still doesn't correctly understand this. Guys like me and Mario do, because we've been there, we've seen it. You'll hear about the so-called moderate Muslim, and they're just like us. They just have a slightly different religion. No. And then you'll hear people talk about radical Islam, radical Muslims, and that's the terrorists, the bombers, the suicide bombers, the love trucks, and all that. Well, that's radical Islamists. That's radical Muslims. No, the radical, the outlier, the one that doesn't fit the mold, the Muslim that is not like the others, is the so-called moderate Muslim that you only find in the West. And even those are essentially one imam rant away,
right,
from full durka.
As we call this sudden jihad syndrome. Okay, where you never know, and at any given moment, he might decide to become a radical, and all it takes is just flipping that mental switch in your mind to go from living in a Western society to attacking it. Like directly, physically.
And frankly, it's the same reason I didn't want to vote for Mitt Romney. I bit my tongue and voted against Barack Obama. But it's the same reason I didn't want to vote for Mitt Romney, and the same reason I'm not super comfortable with the huge number of Mormons that we have in military intelligence. I've known a lot of Mormons. I've known them to be good people generally. But the fact of the matter is that, and this is true of other very religious people, they are Mormon, they are Muslim, they are whatever they are first, and Americans second. So as soon as their religion disagrees with the U.S. or with the mission, then they become unreliable. They become a threat.
I'll put it this way: armed Islamic groups, in the Middle East, use the word democracy as disingenuously as the left in America uses the word racist. Okay, it's just
like I said, religious people.
It's just a word. It's just a word that is meant to provide them some cover. Okay, there's nothing democratic about them. The describing democracy in the Middle East or democracy in Islam, the person who best summarized that was current president of or Sultan of Turkey, if you will, at this point, was Erdogan. Okay. When he said that democracy is not a destination, democracy is the train we take to get there. All right. So in the Middle East, what you see is like in the Arab Spring in 2012, right?
Right.
The toppling of the longtime authoritarian regimes. Okay, within the Middle East, especially Libya. What's that crappy little country next to it? Sorry, I didn't get a lot of sleep. Anyway. Bottom line is, once they get democracy, once they're allowed to vote for their leaders, they always vote for an Islamic party. Okay, they vote for fundamentalism. So democracy in the Middle East is a one-time thing, and then you get basically a caliphate. So if you would like, we can pull up some slides. I'm hoping the slides.
Well, real quick, I just want to, I pinned this comment up so everybody can see it. Stryker says, I voted for Gary Johnson. Don't blame me for mittens. You know, it's funny you should mention Gary Johnson when we're talking about Syria.
Aleppo? What?
What? What's that? I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't even vote in 2012. I'll be honest. First time I voted was 2016. I've only voted 3 times in a national election, all for Donald Trump, but whatever. So here we are. So the fall of Syria. Now, what we saw in the last week and a half, okay, literally in 10 days, was the complete collapse of a 50-year regime, okay, of the Assad family. His father became president for life before him, and Bashar al-Assad took his place. Family originally came to power there in around the 70s. Now they are not. Syria is kind of a nation destined to fail under its current borders. Okay, there's a lot of diversity in the country, and in the Middle East, diversity is, well, nowhere is it a good thing really, but the contention and the internal strife that you get as a result of having a diverse society. The Middle East doesn't have infinity money printing that we do to just basically paper it over with fresh debt. So those differences are going to come to the surface and erupt in gunplay in every instance.
And we've seen this all over the Middle East and Africa. With you've got the the story of the Hutus and the Tutsis. You've got the various different factions of Islam that don't get along with one another. They engage. They will be in conflict with American troops on the ground, conducting war, and they will still have tribal wars between warring clans.
Mm-hmm.
And it's constant.
Yes. Yeah. Diversity is not a strength. Diversity is a nation's greatest challenge. Okay. So getting down to it, Assad does not come from the Sunni majority of the country. The majority of the country is Sunni Muslim. Okay. With significant portions of the population being Kurdish. And then the largest minorities would be the Druze, the Christians, and the Alawiti. Okay, the Alawiti are a Shia tribe. Okay, and they are centered around the west coast. Okay, just north of Lebanon. That is the historic. They're Phoenicians. Okay, if you want to look at it that way, they're the remnants of the Phoenician people. All right, the sea people from ancient history. Lowry, if you want to, you see the 2 red stars in the center there? Yeah, those 2 red stars, and then to the left, there's that little red peninsula to the left of them. That's the Alawiti homeland. That's also where Russia has a naval base up in Latvia. Right? So this is where we were late November 2024, before the action really kicked off. And as you can see, you've already got a piece of territory that is solidly divided along multiple factions here. Okay, so the people in red, or the red, that's going to be the Syrian government forces. Okay, that is Assad's army. That is the legitimate government of the country. That is the territory that they control. They control the 4 largest cities in the country, which are outlined by those 4 red stars. And the northernmost one is Aleppo, which is the 2nd largest city in the country, and the whole place is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. That place has been occupied for almost 3,000 years by various factions. It's in the Bible. Okay, it's one of the oldest cities in the world, and has a large Christian population there as well. South of that, the first one you have is Hama, which is the 3rd largest. Below that is Homs, 4th largest. And then the one at the bottom is Damascus. Okay, that is the capital, that red star. And as you can see, that capital is far away from the rest of the territory in the country, meaning that Syria is inherently unstable because the center of the political power doesn't really extend out into the Badlands. Okay, as you travel east through this benighted piece of soil. All right, so next after that we have in yellow the Syrian Democratic Forces. Okay, they are Kurdish communists. Okay, I shit you not. They're actual communists. They go back decades, okay, this group, and they're basically a combination of Kurdish nationalism, um, Islam, and like the Che Guevara kind of motif of, people power rising up against their oppressor, okay? So it's a weird blend of communism, Kurds, and Islam.
Suicide Nazis.
Yeah, basically. Islamo-communist, just when you thought you were safe. Anyway, so and as you can see, their center of power is that eastern triangle in the country, which you can't really tell, but it's if you cross the Euphrates, then you enter that Kurdish SDF zone. All right. Now, these people in yellow, the Syrian Democratic Forces, they are financed by Iraqi Kurds, and they're also financed by us, of course, because we can't help but get involved. Now, the reason
it's like that picture of Israel and Palestine with the missiles coming from one and the missiles coming from the other, and it's circled. It says my tax dollars at work, and then on the other side, somehow also my tax dollars.
I paid for that. Exactly. So the reason these people are financed and they're considered allied of U.S. interests, okay, even though it's just a convenience for them, it's just to get money and weapons, is because they helped fight against ISIS. Okay, so they were some of the main bodies on the ground fighting back against the caliphate. All right, they weren't doing it for us, they were doing it because they just wanted it for their own land. All right, and let's be honest, ISIS did a really good job of alienating every single other group around them, just from their sheer brutality and just inflexible Sharia doctrine. All right, skip ahead there for a moment.
Okay, take just a second. ISIS, just a second. I want you guys to take a moment to appreciate what a masterful stroke ISIS was generally. This was a nation state with no physical territory, printing propaganda articles, magazines, posters, recruiting, military operations, coining their own money with no physical territory. They did not have an official country that they were the government of, but they still operated very much like an official federal level government structure. And that's a thing that was just slapped together by some dudes essentially to create a motivated ideological violent force. In that regard, they were incredibly successful up until basically Donald Trump came in and said, "We have Moabs. Shut up."
Well, we were financing them in the early days. Okay, you can if you look up, you can still find like press images that show Lindsey Graham and John McCain. All right, like basically in the same meeting with literally Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. All right, who was the former leader of Al Qaeda in Iraq, who went on to become the leader of ISIS. All right. So yeah, we were supporting them under the guise of them being like freedom fighters, okay, against the Assad regime.
Right, the new Mujahideen.
Yeah, the best of the Mujahideen, like what we did in Afghanistan in the 80s.
To create the Taliban.
Yeah, and for a long time, the CIA, especially under Barack Obama, had no qualms in just directly financing terrorism if it gave them like a short-term political or economic gain. Kind of the end goal here for the U.S. since 2012 is to get a pipeline through Syria, okay, to basically providing oil to Israel and oil to Europe. That's the main goal, and Assad would have never allowed that. And we'll see what happens next, obviously. Right. Anyway, back to that. So you see those black circles there? That is what is left of ISIS. Okay, they are kind of isolated out in the desert. That area of land, that's like the lowest value real estate in the country. It's basically just dust bowl. All right, you can think about it. The thing about Islamic militants, okay, like Donald Trump did kick the shit out of them, but you can't really kill them. They're like a virus, okay? You can just beat them back into submission, but given the right circumstances, they're going to spread like a cancer once again, okay? And we'll see if that happens. Anyway, Hussein Obama fired Flynn. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the Defense Intelligence or Army intelligence. Anyway, it's too late. Anyway, yeah, he was blowing the lid on what was going on in Syria. Absolutely. That is why they fired him, and that's why Mike Pence worked against Donald Trump's interest in getting him removed within the first few days of Trump taking office, lest we forget. Now, moving on to the light green.
Yeah, Pence didn't just turn traitor at the end.
No, he was their insurance plan. He was a deep state insurance plan from the very beginning. So the light green, all right, you can see them in between the top two red stars. Okay, that small area there. That's Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. This is the terrorist organization which has essentially taken over the four main cities of the country and therefore the nexus of power. They are Turkish-backed terrorists with international recruits and U.S. passive support. Okay, so we're kind of lukewarm on them. We'd give them some weapons, give them some money here and there in the last few years, if they were able to achieve any type of goals on the ground. All right, but understand they are basically a proxy army of Turkey. Okay, what the Mujahideen were to us in Afghanistan, these Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, I call them hats. Let's just call them hats, okay? Hats are to the Turks, who under Erdogan have had increasingly like imperial ambitions of wanting to like reestablish the Ottoman Empire. You know what I mean? They're still salty about that after all these years. Anyway, so the dark green, the Syrian National Army, okay? They are an ethnic minority in Syria. They're called the Turkmen. Okay, they're basically Turks. All right. Consider these people that and yes, they are financed and supported by the Turks. So the Turks are backing two horses here. Okay, both of those forces you see on the map in green. You could essentially view these people as the Donbas People Republic forces in eastern Ukraine, who basically who fight with the Russian army and are supported by the Russian army. Okay, so in green we got the two Turkish factions. Now the purple ones. Okay, these guys are odd. Okay, these are far south, southwest. All right, they're anti-government factions, and they're near the Golan Heights. Okay, which is occupied by Israel. So they are anti-government factions that border Israel. Wonder who's behind that, right? And if we go deep into the desert, okay, into the no man's land, kind of cornering Jordan, Iraq, and Syria, you have the new Syrian army. These are the guys that we've been funding. These guys since back to Barack Obama. Okay, they're terrorists. They're just straight up terrorists that are financed by us. Call them Amerirists, if you will. But yeah, and there is some overlap between them and ISIS. Okay, there's recruiting that goes on to take those guys from deep in the desert in those black marks and kind of incorporate them in the new Syrian army. But yeah, basically America's terrorists. So you can view blue as America's terrorists there in the region. All right, and we also have a major drone base operating at Al-Tyre. I can't zoom in far enough. Don't worry about it. But the only significant settlement around in that corner between Jordan, Iraq, and Syria, major drone base we operate there. Okay, so that's where things stood before the outbreak of total war. So as you can see, already a very divided, very fragmented country, extremely unstable. So if you want to move to the next slide. Okay, like I said, I apologize for my graphics here. Okay, I have a $700 Hewlett Packard laptop. Okay, and these are the tools that I have to work with, just based off what came on this computer. Okay. Anyway, it's showing you the movement, the general movement of forces here. Okay, now we'll start up north. Okay, with what is basically the sidebar of this war. Now, the Turks and the Kurds really hate each other, okay? And they have always hated each other. They love nothing more than slaying each other. In fact, it's just kind of it's like gardening, okay, between these two people, that they must just cull and pluck weeds amongst each other periodically every few years or so, all right? Humanitarian crises be damned. So you see the Syrian National Army, which I said are the Turkmen, which are Turks, okay, are directly engaging with the Syrian Democratic Forces north of Aleppo and north of the Euphrates River. The Turkish army will repeatedly use their official national army to send artillery salvos across the border to try to soften up the Kurdish resistance, and then they'll send in their Turkmen to basically try and seize territory. This has been ongoing tit for tat for at least 2 decades. Okay, this type of conflict between the Turks and the Kurds. All right, so dark green hates the yellow. Okay, on the map. Now, now the most important thing, the most important faction, the one that has seized Damascus and effectively seized political control of this country, is HATS, the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. Okay, like I said, you're Turkish-backed terrorists. Now, they in a lightning campaign, okay, swept from Aleppo, which is the green star in the far north, all the way down to Damascus in 1 week. All right, they started in Idlib, which is the central city in that light green blob that you see there, and the war kicked off when they basically declared they were conducting militant activities in defense against aggression. Okay, so I guess we're going to kill you before you kill us. They seized Aleppo and shocked.
Real quick, as you're looking at that, like you said, lightning campaign to
Yep.
Wait. Okay, lightning campaign to move down from Aleppo down to Damascus.
Right.
Right. You're talking about covering. You said in a week. You're talking about covering 400 miles.
Yes. Yeah.
And
the reason
400 miles, right? That's we're talking about a country that's barely the size of the state of Georgia. Yep. 400 miles, you're talking about a long day's drive for an American commuter. It's 400 miles, 6 hours drive, maybe 6.5 with bathroom breaks and a lunch. But understand that when you're talking about a military operation, moving and taking ground, moving units, moving entire command units, and with armored vehicles, some of that is on foot. To cover 400 miles and these are cities. These are not. I mean, they're not New York City or Atlanta or Los Angeles by any stretch of the imagination, but imagine something that is to a level of infrastructure and structural sophistication similar to like a Conyers, Georgia. You're talking about an established, populated city, and combat operations in that environment are incredibly complex and sophisticated. For these guys to make that maneuver over the course of a week is extraordinary. That speaks to a substantial level of competence, one which, like Mario points out, the HATS at least have passive U.S. support, and you can take as evidence for that claim the mere fact that they exhibited the competence to move that quickly and that effectively. I'm telling you now, the local nationals there do not have that capability organically.
So yes, exactly. So how did they do this? Okay, 3 main reasons why. All right. One, like I said, they have modern military equipment. HATS have modern military equipment. Okay, it was given to them. It's basically the overstock, okay, of the Turkish army. So basically, just like what we do. Okay, like we'll pick a group, militant group that we want to back, and we'll give them like our mothballed stuff, like left over from Gulf War I, Gulf War II, right? Same thing with these guys. So they got modern BMPs, modern weapons, modern anti-air, modern drone jamming technologies. Okay, and they're also in green. Both of those Turkish factions there have taken the right lessons from the Russo-Ukraine war. They extensively use FPV drone operations, okay, in the conduct of their warfare. First-person view drones, like you see the images that are ubiquitous from Russia and Ukraine, where it's like the suicide bombing drone, okay, that someone on the ground somewhere is controlling remote control, right? They used those extensively. Both of those groups in green, both Turkish-backed forces, used those extensively in the first day of operations against the Assad's government, Assad's regime, and they absolutely terrorized them. The Syrian army had no idea like what to do or how to even respond. Okay, they're caught completely pants down. Secondly, so yeah, first, modern military equipment, or at least modern enough for the region. Second, extensive use of drone operations. And third, it was like a panic cascading just collapse effect for the Syrian army. Once Aleppo got sacked, okay, taken by surprise, which should have been like a major battle, like that, because it has been in the last decade, okay, I mean, multiple times when the Syrian regime looked like it was teetering and then it fought back and regained control. Aleppo's always been instrumental. It is the second most populous city in the country, and is the power base, the political nexus of the north up there. So after Aleppo falls, that started that cascading effect. So you have the Syrian army attempting to retreat, and that green line, okay, that's a major highway, okay, just so you know, it's like the biggest highway in the country. So they're trying to fall back, and they keep getting harassed and attacked as they are retreating. They're leaving behind all their military equipment. Hats is taking their military equipment and then riding it at them, driving it at them as they are trying to escape, and blasting them with their own tanks and their own BMPs, while the Syrians think, of course, that they're friendly forces that are retreating with them. So it's really, I mean, like the worst possible tactical situation you could find yourself in as an army is what the Syrian army faced here. They retreated to Hama, which is the second, that second green star, where they briefly held out, but they got encircled, they got flanked. And as you know, if you're going to get flanked, you have to either retreat before the enclosure is complete, before the kettle, as the Russians like to use it in their tactic. It's the same tactic that we've seen since prehistory. Caesar used this, okay? Basically envelop the enemy, all right? And they have a choice. They can either be encircled and then picked apart at your fancy, okay, according to your timeline, because they can't escape, or you can fall back, all right? So that's what they did. They fell back to Homs, all right, which is the third green star down. Now, there's a river there as well. They did hold up pretty well, but command and control was already breaking down at this point, and they were unable to maneuver on the ground to realize that they were being encircled again. And once that encirclement was complete, they were cut off. A lot of them got slaughtered. A lot of them surrendered. God knows what happened to them. And then from that point, all three of those cities had fallen in like 3 days. Understand, this is 3 days, so they are riding hard and facing very little resistance. This is how much territory you can seize if no one's firing back, okay, or if they are, it's weak and ineffective. So from that point, it was just a ride down to Damascus, okay, to complete the capture of the country. As Hats had taken those 3 northern cities and were descending upon Damascus, at that point you had basically the purple, the Southern Operations Room, okay, and the new Syrian army took advantage of this situation and decided they were going to get in on the action. So Purple Force there, Southern Operations Room, all right, is probably financed or supported by Israel in some way, because what's Israel's goal here? They're already occupying the Golan Heights, which is internationally recognized as Syrian territory. Well, that's basically done at this point. That is now permanently Israel, and they're going to send their proxy forces or whatever to kind of secure that region, to ensure that the basically jihado caveman doesn't get a foothold in the area. All right. So they are Purple Force Southern Operations Room. As of right now, they're 20 kilometers from Damascus itself. So they seized that little purple territory there. And then you have the blue, the new Syrian army, the Amararists, moved up and took Palmyra, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's like an ancient city, goes back to Greek and Roman times, right? Made famous by ISIS blowing up Roman ruins, okay, Roman and Greek ruins during their reign of terror, which is, because because that's what Islam does. It destroys everything that existed before it. Considering everything, all culture that existed before Islam is classified as Jaliliya, okay, in Arabic, which means like nonsense or nothingness or ignorance, right? So anyway, that's different story. And then they
Kind of like
moved.
the Korean word for nonsense.
Yeah, it's like onomatopoeia.
Umrumur.
So, and then they cut clear across. They cut clear across
Mumbling or
the
nonsense.
desert.
I'll be that.
I know. It's like if you want to know what speaking Korean sounds like, just fill your mouth full of marshmallows and start talking. That's Korean. Anyway, so cutting clear westward across the desert to basically catch Damascus. Damascus basically is caught here in a gangbang, right? They're getting it on all three sides. So, and that's when Assad packed his family up in a plane and just took off. Now, that's the major thrust here. So we got Turks and Kurds killing each other in the north. Then we got Turks and Turkish terrorists attacking the Syrian army in the north, descending downward to Damascus. And then we got these two separate factions, one possibly controlled by Israel and the other controlled by the United States in the south, wreaking havoc. Now, moving to the next slide. So this is where we are now, okay? The Turkmen, okay, basically the Turkish unofficial Turkish army in the north, mostly controlling the same territories, but they're still fighting with the Kurds, and they will be for the foreseeable future, because that's what Erdogan wants. The most stunning thing you see here in red, the Syrian government, all they have left is that basically that strip of land north of Lebanon on the coast, okay, which is also
and real quick, by comparison to where they were.
Yes,
So,
they
right, this
lost
is
it all.
the
Lost
footprint,
it
and now
all.
it's this. That's not a reduction. That is a collapse.
Correct. It's like what if the United States got into a conflict and all we had left was New England? You know what I mean? Lost everything
Yeah,
else.
exactly.
Total wipeout. So that is actually the historical homeland of the Alawiti tribe, which I said is that minority group that Assad is from. Okay, it's also where Russia has a naval base. So part of the reason that hasn't fallen is because if you go in there and basically tear that place up, you're directly in conflict with Russia at that point. Okay, so that's probably going to stay a safe zone for now, but I don't know. Actually, now that we're talking about Russia, let's talk about Russia and Iran. They're the allies of the Syrian army. They're the allies of Assad. So how could this possibly have happened, right? Well, why didn't they come to save him? Well, let's look about Russia first. Well, Russia's occupied, okay? Russia's seriously occupied in Ukraine, and they have not had the same level of troop and air power commitments, in the last couple of years as they have in the past. So Russian garrison is way down in Syria. And then Iran, of course, is very, very much occupied with Israel. They took some of their best men, their best Hezbollah forces from where they were stationed around, various parts of northern, eastern, western, central Syria, and sent them into Lebanon, okay, to fight with Israel, right? So the main Iranian garrison that was helping to support the country was occupied with Israel in Lebanon, all right? So also the Israeli attacks against Iran in the last few months, some of them extremely dramatic, as we remember, of course, the pager bombing. Okay, they took out the leadership. Like, I don't think people understand how badly devastated Hezbollah was. Okay, and the IRGC, Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. They've lost a lot of the most intelligent, capable commanders that they have. Killed through airstrikes or killed through deception. Hezbollah is very, very weak right now compared to what it has been in the past. So, yeah, so it's perfect opportunity. Assad's best friends and his allies, okay, are otherwise occupied in their own wars, and they couldn't support him, and that's why his army collapsed. So,
Yep.
Do you want to go back to the map? Just briefly wrap this up.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, the light green, as you can see, that would be hats. Okay, Turkish-backed terrorists who are basically we don't bomb for whatever reason. By passive support, I mean we don't bomb them. Okay,
Right.
at least yet. So they control
That's mighty
the
sweet
major,
of us.
they control the major population centers, those 4 main cities. Okay, they are effectively in control of everything. They're in control of the country, or could be able to directly engage anything east or west of the Euphrates. All right. Israel consolidating the Golan Heights down there in the southwest, and I don't know what. Probably the Amerirists. Okay, will probably go back, or I don't know what they're going to do, honestly. Now, what's going on right now with Israel and the United States in response to this? All right, Israel has, of course, been doing airstrikes for months. Okay, deep within Syria, targeting Iran's senior leadership, targeting Hezbollah leadership and weapons depots, and whatever, trying to. Because that is the main supply route for materiel and personnel to supporting the Hezbollah in Lebanon. Okay, it comes from that Shia crescent. Okay, which extends from Iran through what was Syria down to Lebanon. Well, that's basically cut off at this point. So Hezbollah and Lebanon, they're on their own. This conflict, by the way, is greatly benefiting Israel. Okay, as far as their geopolitical situation, you might be thinking like, oh no, there's going to be radical Islamic caveman terrorists right on the border with Israel. Well, Israel doesn't care about Islamic radical caveman terrorists. Okay, those are easy pickings for them. What they care about are regimes that are basically directly tied to Iran, which they view as their nemesis. Okay, now,
which, let's be fair, that's not an unreasonable analysis.
No, it's not. They are in fact enemies. Okay.
Yeah.
Reasons, motivations, your support, the audience's support of either side, whatever, immaterial. They are nemesis. Anyway, and what the United States is bombing as well, in concert with Israel, to destroy at least what they're saying, to destroy chemical weapon stockpiles. Okay, basically the really nasty weapons that the Assad regime has, that they don't want any group of Islamic forces to get a hold of. Okay, just because of the potential terrorism fallout that could result. And the United States is also bombing those, basically the desert peoples out there, the remnants of ISIS, okay, out in the desert. Now, the United States has stepped up the bombing of them as well, because they don't want that. Like I said earlier, all it takes is basically if you stop fighting them, they're like a cancer. They'll just metastasize again and start spreading. So that is ostensibly why we are conducting bombing campaigns in the country, to make sure that the ISIS lid doesn't pop off and then start storming across the country. But then again, if HATS, okay, actually does descend into Taliban style, Sharia law governance, where all religious minorities and basically anyone who was a member of the previous regime is going to be tortured and executed, then the United States will maintain the option of we're just going to fund ISIS again, because why not? ISIS is going to attack these guys. ISIS is going to attack everybody. Yeah. So, it's kind of selfish, and it's kind of sad how U.S. and Israeli foreign policy, the way it works for us is, if it's not going to be stable under our terms, then it's better that it be unstable. Okay. And we do that time and time again, especially in the Middle East. So that's that's my wrap up of what's going on in Syria.
Yeah. So I hope you guys found this educational and interesting. My takeaway is there's shit going down in the Middle East. That's a constant. That's always true. And my concern is that it offers one more excuse for the American military-industrial complex to enter us into a never-ending Sarlacc pit of tax dollar sucking forever war.
Yep.
Like, yo, I love a good war. I do. It's more fun than a man ought to be allowed to have. But I mean a good war. And that's one where you go in, you do the war, you achieve your objectives, you complete the mission, and you get the fuck out, and you take your shit with you.
Yep.
Right? That's a good war. Now, I'm not saying that I want to fight wars, but there are good reasons to fight wars. Everywhere the U.S. is currently embroiled in conflict, it is a conflict of our own making by exacerbating existing tensions and funding the development of radical anti-American and anti-whatever the local population is. It's all about building and selling weapons.
Yep.
And there's no profit margin for the American people. I mean, there's a tax benefit to the government. There's a massive profit to the military-industrial complex. But as Americans generally, we're not making money off this because the military-industrial complex is making the money that they're making off of our tax dollars. When they talk about sending money to Ukraine, to Syria, to anywhere to support local engagements, the way that works is they don't send. It's not like Barack Obama's still in office. They're not sending straight pallets of cash. They send vouchers that represent tax dollars, which those governments can then use to purchase weapons from specific U.S. government-approved vendors. Yep. So that money's guaranteed to come back into an American company and be taxed by the American government. Now, there's a lot to like there as far as keeping the money local. But y'all,
it's a fake economy.
It is.
It's a fake economy.
Never forget the state of nature is a short, brutal, violent life. We live in civilization, in the lie of civility, for only so long as we can continue to tell that lie to one another, for only so long as we continue to agree to tell that lie to one another.
Yeah. Well, and I'd say for U.S. involvement in Syria, I'd close on, when you create monsters to fight monsters, you're going to find yourself in a process of continuously creating monsters to take care of the previous monster you created. So when you get involved,
that's how I got my name on the Geneva Convention.
you get involved in this. There are no good guys here. Okay, I guess I'll sum it up that way. Everyone has their own interests here, and none of them really align with ours. But I'm pretty sure, however this ends, there's going to be a big, beautiful pipeline running through Syria. Okay, headed to Israel and to Europe. One way or another, that's going to happen. Okay, so.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching this morning. As always, we appreciate you. Like, share, and subscribe. I noticed that we've got as many people watching on Twitter right now as on all other platforms combined, and that's heartening and interesting and fascinating. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, repost, etc., and click that link below to support the show. You can buy me a coffee, help keep these bad boys hot and full, and help us expand this project so we can start doing more and more shows. Keep an eye out on all the platforms today. You should see some after this afternoon, after I get back from the chiropractor. You should start seeing some shorts coming out of yesterday's episode. And make sure that you click that button so you get the notification. We'll be live tomorrow morning at 07:30 for Firearms Friday. Come get you some. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow.